Good afternoon. Welcome back to TBD. My name is Elijah Bernardin, and this is episode 2. Now, this is episode 2.0 to be exact. And today we are in the McGovern Market, or as I like to call it, the Mac. Now, I call it the Mac because it's called Merrimack Market, but it's part of the McGovern Center as a whole. So most of the South Campus students will call it McGovern Market. I like to call it the Mac as a way to give it a a little personal flair, a bit of a personal nickname to kind of give my spin on things, give my esque to it, something that's not so much generic, but something that's not too flashy, not doing too much, but again, it's got my personal esque on it, something that I can, coin but not coin because I can't really coin the phrase the Mac because somebody else probably has already named that or used that name for either this exact same place or something along those same lines. But we're in the Mac market today. It's not too busy, it's not too bustling, but I don't know if you can already hear it, but there are some voices in the background, and it's good. It's good. I like it. It reminds me of college life itself. It reminds me that I am always around people, around my peers, around people that are younger than me, older than me, people that have some of the same goals, people that have some different goals. So it's nice to be in spaces like this, and I like being in areas like this. I've been trying to, randomize the spots that I'm in so you get a feeling for the busyness, the quiet parts, and the in between. I'd say when we did our trailer episode, that would be the in between, where you had some voices in the background, but you didn't have too many that were kind of disrupting. We had the quiet, which was more windy. I don't know if you heard it, but in the first episode, it was very windy, and it was just a really cold day that day. And me being me, I chose to be outside mostly because again we want to be in different spots when we're recording to make things more interesting, not just for you guys but also for me, to kind of change things up, the same way that every episode is TBD. So are the locations, so are the topics, so are the guests that I have. Everything about this podcast, and I'll say it a million times over, is TBD, and we got to take that to the next level. Every bit of this podcast is TBD. So, take that with a grain of salt like you will, but also just kind of keep in mind where we're at. We're going to be talking about now. Okay, here's how we're going to do this. So, I had this idea in the shower this morning. I was getting ready and I'm doing my do as I'm taking a shower. And before I say this, I want to preface I am not insane. I promise you, I am not insane. But I was talking to myself in the shower about future podcast ideas and about how I want to be more proactive about getting these out there and kind of just recording them and having them ready and editing and all that. And I was talking to myself in the shower about potential ideas because even though this is TBD, you got to have ideas that you can just kind of cling to, in a second, that you can just pull up and be like, yo, yep, that's what I want to talk about today. So even though it was TBD, we might call this one planned, but it was still to be determined. But I'm going with it anyway. Roll with it. We are going to be talking about the apocalypse. Now, I love the apocalypse. I love talking about the idea of it, the possibility of it happening, and most importantly, what I would do if the apocalypse were to happen. Now, when you first think of the apocalypse, what do you think of? Natural disaster, nuclear warfare, zombies, societal crash, the Great Depression, some people might say, with how the stock market crashed and everything just went completely to hell. Some people might think of the apocalypse as just kind of like when COVID hit. COVID hit and everybody was fearful because there was a deadly disease out there that nobody knew how to combat or deal with at the time. And you were either going to become very sick just by being outside without a mask on, or you come into contact with people and you end up, you shake somebody's hand or somebody sneezes and, you know, Now, as nasty as it sounds, somebody's germs gets on you, and next thing you know, you're sick. Some people might think of the apocalypse as, like I said, zombie apocalypse, which is what I usually think of. When I think of the apocalypse, I think of the zombie apocalypse, the undead coming back to life and roaming the earth. And kind of like the Walking Dead, they kind of just like take over society, and then we as human beings have to go into survival mode, and everything about society and the way that we as a community operates becomes different. Everything changes, and you go from living an everyday secure life, as secure as can be, right, to every man for themselves, every man, every woman, every child, every parent to themselves, for themselves, by themselves. Now, think it over. Take some time to really mull over your answer. What would you do? And I know I can't get you guys' answers in real time right now to discuss with you, but I want you to sit and kind of think about it. What would you do if a zombie apocalypse or the internet went down and everybody's cell phones were off, and or the purge? What happens if the purge were to happen? What would you do? If the apocalypse, we'll just put that there. If the apocalypse were to come, and wherever you are, whether that be where you are right now listening or where you are during your normal daily life, what would you do? How would you go about trying to survive? Who would you contact? Where would you go? Think about those things, because as much as we don't really need to think about it normally, like in a day-to-day life, because again, we've got a lot of protections to kind of keep us secure. You've got a family that's behind you, or you've got, a system in place to fall back on should things go wrong. You've got, money left over, or you're working a job that is obviously generating money weekly or bi-weekly or something of that sort. So you have bases to fall back on and really kind of keep yourself secure. The world isn't in any mortal danger, besides the current state of the world. Um, Granted, how bad that may be, but we're not in any grave danger. Your life isn't being threatened or feared for. But should it come to pass, fingers crossed it don't. May the gods, keep that from happening. But should something like that come to pass, what would you do? Who would you call? If you could call anybody, who would you find if you could find anybody? Where would you go? And reiterate those things over and over, and I kind of want to place those in your head, because again, you want to have a plan, or you should have some sort of a plan. If you don't have a set plan, find somebody who does, or stick with people. Find people you trust. If you can't, go to places you trust. Go to places that have good resources, or that have people around you that might be able to help you. Now, I don't want to say that you can't trust people when the apocalypse comes, but you won't know who to trust. Strangers should not be enemies, but they shouldn't be the first people that you trust outright. The Walking Dead has shown many times that strangers can't always be trusted when things go to shit, because people's opinions and values and morals change when your back is pressed against the wall. Fight or flight kicks in, and everything sort of does a 180, where you could be the nicest person, uh, the nicest person in the world, who cares and looks out for everybody, and then societal crash hits, and now you're every man for themselves. I don't care what it takes. I'm going to do what I have to do to get mines and protect myself and survive by myself, for myself, with myself. And then there's people who are the complete opposite. You go living around being, about yourself, by yourself, not really caring about anybody, and then societal crash hits, and all of a sudden, now you're worried about others around you. Now you're worried about protecting others as much as you want to protect yourself. And it becomes, you start to see people's either true natures or people's natures change. So it's always good to think about it. It's always good to really reaffirm yourself in your values, but also in your values of other people, and your notions about other people. Now, I've been beating around the bush about this because I really want to talk about it, but I want to give you guys that, you know, excess factor to really think about before we get into my plan. Now, Elijah's plan for the apocalypse. It's complicated because again, life is always moving. You're always in different places along the entire span of the year. 1 minute, 1 month, you're in a normal routine at your job. So every day you're at your job. One day you're at school. For me, right now, like as we know, I'm on campus. So what would I do if I'm on campus? Now, I have no means of viable transportation that I own, right? And I'm not going to put too much of my business out there, but the best course of action would be to rally with people that I know on campus. Anybody that I know that is friend, family, um, you know, extended or a mutual friend or family, find them, contact them, find a way to get to them in hopes of bolstering numbers because as good as you are by yourself, you need numbers in certain situations to overpower unforeseeable odds. Let's say that. So I would find my friends. I'd find my my coworkers if I have any nearby. I'd find my closest friends that either live with me or live near me, and I'd kind of see if I can get to them or they can get to me so we can all meet up. From there, go about finding a stronghold, finding a place that has either ample supplies nearby or ample supplies in the vicinity or inside the building itself and hole up because moving around too much in the apocalypse with unpredicted or with unpredictable factors around you causes problems. You need to have a basis of operations first and foremost to assert yourself and assess the situation. Once you've got a base, even if it's a temporary one, you find somewhere to hole up for a minute, do an assessment of what's going on, suss out friend from foe. Obviously, we want to be a good Samaritan. We want to save as many people as we can. So anybody who seems like they can be trusted, bring them in, help them. Anybody who needs a place to hang, to save, to 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 hide, to rest, bring them in. There are a couple buildings or a couple buildings on campus, and the campus life itself, like the student or the not student, sorry, the school board would probably say stay inside, don't go anywhere, and that's all nice and well and dandy. But in times like the zombie apocalypse, which is usually what I prepare for, you can't do that. You can't listen to the rules and regulations of the larger body group because yes, while they are looking out for the entire student body, sometimes those go awry. Sometimes you can't always listen to that. You might have people that are stranded in another place that are in need of assistance or that, need anything. And you have to, in my opinion, do what it takes to help those people the same way you would expect them to help you. If my friend is across the campus battling a horde of zombies, I'm going to want to be there to find him. I'm going to want to be there to help him. I'm going to want to be there to try and do my part. Now, I own some katanas. I own an array of weapons, and they were more just a collection as, just for fun, because nobody collects weapons to just have weapons. Nobody collects weapons unless you're, you know, a weapon smith or a weapons type person that wants to just be ready with any sort of deadly force weapon known to man. I like to collect them because they're fun. I like katanas. Katanas and swords are really cool to me, but I also collect them for the apocalypse. I told you I plan for this. I think about this all the time, and I do this because it's fun, but also because you have to be ready. You can never not be ready for something of this magnitude. It will come one day, and when it does, because freaking Elijah can't speak. When it does, I will be ready, and I hope that I can help others be ready. But that collection of weapons, it's not a huge one, but it's enough for me and a couple people, mainly my family or my friends, whoever's with me, to have a fighting chance. Let's say that. Now, all I would need to do is find a way to recuperate with my family and my friends, find my, attain my weapons. And once I've got all those pieces together, because really that's all you need. You just need your family, you need a weapon or two at least, because especially when you don't have something like again, if we're going over the zombie apocalypse, when you don't have anything like a gun or a projectile weapon like a crossbow or even a bow in general, you need a melee weapon. It sucks because you have to get up close and personal, but it's better than being barehanded and ended up getting caught off guard, right? So get you a melee weapon, even if it's a kitchen knife, have something at the ready, never to use it unless it's absolutely necessary. And so you feel a little bit better about being able to defend yourself. I'd make sure that I would have those on me. Again, my family would be with me, my friends would be with me. You travel in a large group because even though large numbers aren't the best, sometimes it's better to be in a larger group to have all sides covered than nobody at all. Once I've got that, there are a couple spots that I would go to. One that I have planned out with a friend of mine. Shout out to Jerome. And I'd make my way there. I'm not going to disclose that information because I can't compromise the integrity of that location. Should this come to pass, obviously, if you know me or you're with me, I will make sure that we get there. I will let you know where to be. If we aren't together and we're separated, I will let you know where to go so we can meet up and bolster our defenses. But as of right now, for the sake of the podcast and for the sake of myself, I will not be disclosing that information. But that's something I want you to think about as well. Where would you go? Where, like, and I know I've already said it, but where would you go? What place? Would you find a random building? Would you find, do you have a place in mind? Like, if you're thinking right now while listening, is there somewhere that you have in mind that you would go to? Like me, every time I say it, the first place that comes up is my predetermined position to go to that I have planned out with a friend. I also have a couple backups. There are a couple places on campus that I would go to if I don't have the means of getting to where I need to be right now. There are a couple places back home that I would get to if I can't get to my already planned location. Those things are always good to have. They're always good to think of. Having a plan might make you seem a little paranoid. It might make you feel a little overly planned for something that'll probably never happen. But how do you know it won't happen? Let's think about the government shutdown that happened a couple days ago. The government shutdown just ended not too long ago. And when it did, this was what called the longest government shutdown in who knows how long in history, I think they said. Now, I don't know how true that is. Information and the media are very finicky, but I believe it was what, around 43 to 45 days that the government was shut down. And that's an unprecedented thing. You can't have the government shut down in the middle of the presidency in the time where the presidency is so chaotic, and it seems like our president isn't even here, like, governing our country the way he should. He's more focused on these things that are attacking him, and he's focusing on all these things where it's like, instead of, or he's focusing in other country, he's focused on other countries, and it's like, you have a duty to this country, yet you're focused on other things, and now all of a sudden the government shuts down. And we are now left defenseless without things like healthcare, without things like government subsidiaries or government what is it, government offices, or government ran or led businesses, agencies being funded. My school is run by the state. It's run by the government, pretty much. We get funded by the government. The school gets funded by the government. What happens if the government were to be shut down for longer periods of time and we have no fallback? What happens when there is no more federal aid, which, by the way, was planning to be taken away, apparently? I don't know if that's going to happen, but those things cause problems for regular day people like us. this apocalypse situation is something on a larger scale, but that could affect things like the government. That could affect things like local commerce, supply chains. That could become something like a wide pandemic. COVID, if COVID had kept going for more than the 3 4 years that it was going on for, there could have been monumental problems for not just us as people, but for things like the government, for things like supply chains, for things like everyday transportation. What happens now? Granted, yes, COVID isn't going to stop somebody's car from working, and it's not going to, obviously stop you from taking the train or anything like that. But it's an idea to have you think of. Those things are catastrophically important to think about when things like the apocalypse happens, or the purge, or government shutdowns, or one day if the internet just stopped working. Do you know how many people would be affected? And I mean, not just the internet as in, oh, the Wi-Fi is down, or for like, or the Wi-Fi is down for a couple days, or oh, social media is down, it'll be back up. No, I'm talking the internet, everything about the internet, Google, Bing, Amazon, um, you know, internet servers. Like, if it all went down, you couldn't access not your phone, you couldn't access your electric car, you couldn't access your banking information. What happens if that goes down? What do you do? And what happens if you don't know, like, when it goes down, how will you know when it comes back? Because it's down. If the internet is gone, right? And the internet connection and satellites go down or something of the sort, right? And you have no idea how to understand, or how to get information. What do you do now? Most people would be like, oh, it's easy, you start writing letters, or you start communicating with people in your community. COVID has changed that, though. COVID isolated a lot of people, and now a lot of people do not know how to interact socially anymore, or they find social interaction to be anxiety inducing. So it's presented a lot of problems for people. Kids in a newer generation have grown up being isolated because of COVID, even though it was for 1 year or a year and a half. We have now a lot of unprecedented problems in areas that need to be addressed and that you need to start thinking about. This apocalypse conversation isn't just for the inevitable apocalypse, but also for things of everyday life. Have a plan. Have a plan in anything you do. Have a plan for anything that you want to do. Even if you don't have it planned out, mapped out step by step, have an idea. Have have an idea of how you want to either approach it, tackle it, handle it, make sure to finish it, right? Something of the sort to make sure that you yourself are in good standing, but also so you don't have to worry about it when it does happen. If the purge comes, what do? Hold up, don't go anywhere, find a weapon, stay inside. Unless you're somebody crazy. If you are somebody, and I say this crazy in the nicest way possible, if you are somebody crazy or insane that's going out on the purge thinking about robbing stores or killing people, don't do that. One, because it's not bad, and one, because it's bad and I would never condone that. Do not do that. If the purge were to happen, do not do that at all. That's not good. But if you were, first of all, what are you going to do to protect yourself? Because if you're out there doing that, that means somebody else is out there with you, actively trying to do that, or wishing to do that, or wanting to do that. What if you have somebody who is your mortal enemy? How do you know they're not looking for you? How do you know that they won't come and find you during the purge? If the apocalypse happens, how do you know that your enemies, or your adversaries, your ops, anybody is not out there trying to actively get at you? All things to think of. And I get really invested in these talks because, again, it's cool to see just how people's minds work and just how intricate people have set up these things. I had a conversation again with Jerome, and we were talking for a good, it was only 30 minutes or maybe an hour, I don't remember, but we were talking for a good long while about the inevitable, what's our plan? How do we go about it? Because you can have a plan to start something like the apocalypse and how you plan to work things out at the start. How do you keep going through that? What do you do? What happens when food runs out, always good to see where people's heads at. And it really shows you the type of people that you surround yourself with. You don't want to surround yourself with somebody who has no plan. And not to say that people who don't have a plan aren't good, because some people just don't plan like that, and that's okay. But you want to have somebody who at least knows something of the sort of what they plan to do, or how they plan to move, you know? All things to really think about, really digest, really mull over, even if it's for one day, even if it's randomly one day in the shower, like me. You just think about it. Hey, the zombie apocalypse, yeah, I probably, build a nice little stronghold, take in some people, get some people to, to be on my side, find as many food and rations and medical supplies as I can, maybe some toiletries for, obviously everyday life. You want to find things like a bathroom, you want to find places where you can sleep, furnishings. You might not need couches or extravagant chairs and all these accessories anymore. You might just need basic necessities, unless you're somebody who likes to live extravagantly when the world is ending. If that's the type of person that you are, hey, you let me know how you gonna find these extravagant things, and make sure you tell me, so I can add that to my repertoire of things that I gotta get. All right. But yeah, that's where my head is at. Not every day, because obviously I've got more pressing things to think of and talk about and do day in and day out. But that's kind of where I'm at sometimes. I do appreciate you for sitting here to listen, because again, these tangents are always what I live to talk about. This is episode 2 of TBD, and this was 2.0. I don't know if you guys remember. Episode 1 was episode 1.1 for the reasons I explained there. I won't go into that, but this is episode 2. Only, if you really think about it, only episode 2. I hope you guys enjoy the length of these talks that we have. I try to keep them not too lengthy, so you're not sitting here for 4 hours or for an hour trying to digest my podcast. I like to have these be little short episodes that you can put on every now and then, but I do also start to realize that sometimes you can't have 30-minute episodes or 20-minute episodes back to back. You need something longer, you need something lengthier, you need something fattier for somebody that really enjoys podcasts to sit and listen to. But as a college student, I can't give you more than 30 minutes sometimes, because that's all I've got. I've got class in the next 20 minutes. So I'm going to end this now. Well, not now, but in the next minute or two. As always, thank you so much again for watching, listening, hearing, understanding, paying attention, and just being here. Thank you so much for taking time to share this moment with me, for listening to my wacky stories. Next time we will hopefully be in some place a little more interesting, I'd say. And I'm in these spaces and I realize, even though I tell you guys where I'm at, if you don't fully know where it is that I am on campus, you'll just think I'm at some random spot. Oh, hey, he's here. There's a couple people in the background, but hey, he's there. But I like to give you guys a name, especially for the people that know where I am and that can go to these spaces and be like, oh, shoot, he was in here recording once. Nice. You know, maybe if I make it big, one day these will become like national spots, right? Oh, these are things to think about, guys. But yeah, thanks again. One last time. Have a great day. Stay safe. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon or day or night or evening, wherever it is that you are listening to right now. Take the time to drink lots of water, get plenty of rest. I hope you ate something today. If you weren't eating during this, if you haven't drinked, drunk, whatever the word is. If you haven't ingested any beverages in this time frame, do so. Water is essential, but live on the wild side. Drink some soda every once in a while. Won't kill you to drink it once in a blue moon. Drink some juice. Juice is amazing. Fruit punch Arizona, I love it. And yeah, get some great rest, drink water, live every day to the fullest. And as always, I have been Elijah Bernardin, and this has been TPD. Peace out, guys.
Music licensing reimagined.